Hey folks, we're going to gear back up for some Spelljammer Combat and Exploration artwork production this morning. Thanks a lot for folks that are checking this out. I'm going to make sure my signal's up and running, that I'm live here on YouTube. I'm then going to go through my intro spiel. So, let's see. Mic check. 1, 2, 3. Cool. All right, we're sounding good there. Doing some posting here. So if you have, if you're catching this after the live stream in the future, you can skip forward like maybe a minute to get through the intro spiel. But then, let's see, clicking buttons. So for those that are here live or interested, my name is Phil Kearney. Hey, I create role-playing game supplements. I illustrate them, then publish them online. And I've been focusing my attention on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition here for the past 5 years. There are a slew of links in the description down below to previous work that I've created. So, and they all have full previews. So if you're here for the artwork and the pixel pushing, there's probably about 150 different illustrations among the previews that I have listed down below that you can check out. If you're here for D&D stuff specifically, then the stuff that I build is meant for both players and DMs. I run campaigns from level 1 to 20 in about 200 to 250 hours. So most of the stuff that I publish is stuff that I either use in my own campaign or created because I wanted to use it in my campaign. Subtle difference there, but it's a matter of front end or versus after the fact. But the stuff that I play test on my own tables. So if you think this stuff is cool, consider making a purchase, adding it to your game as well. But I just posted that I'm live on Twitter, so you can follow me on Twitter at Phil Kearney if you're still on the Twitter X platform. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, get notifications when I'm live in the future because we're trying to push ourselves up to 500 subscribers. Thanks a lot for everyone that's been involved in the journey so far. Karen, thanks a lot for showing up. And so let's see, we're at episode 261 right now. We made this book cover back around episode 40, so you can go into the Wayback Machine of our playlist here and go check out the creation of that if you're interested. But otherwise, we're building a book here, so we felt that there needed to be more depth of mechanics for Spelljammer Combat and Exploration, so we built a book called Spelljammer Combat and Exploration. Play tested it with my home team and some recruits. It turned out smart, so we pushed it off to an editor to wordsmith it together. When the editor pushes it back to us, we then can take a layout program. I'm using MS Word here to break up the text into individual bite-sized ideas that we can place on each page. Once everything is laid out onto their own individual pages, we can zoom in to a single page here. And then we can extract this page as a PDF document that we can drop here into Photoshop. And then we can start illustrating it. When it's done, we can pull it back into Word, seal it all together into a PDF, publish it on the DMsGuild.com, and then add it to our link of some of the things that we're looking at below. So that's where we're going to be at. That's where we're going to continue today. We're working on structures and environment stuff here on this ring world idea that we built. After this, there's only 9 illustrations left in the book. There's 5 in the combat chapter, and there's 4 in the system generation, like the random system generator die roll thing that we have. We have 4 pages of that. We've got 4 illustrations in that document there. So we're looking at 9 more illustrations after we finish this one. I've got maybe 20 diagrams throughout the book I still need to build that are in various completions, various stages of completion. So it looks like a January publish date is very realistic for us at this point. So I'm just going to keep kicking through this stuff as much as I can, see what kind of progress we can make. And when I obviously have a lot of stuff to do off screen that eats my day, other than the time that I spend with you guys here, which is why I continue to work on the same piece from morning to morning to morning, because I'm using this as an opportunity for me to hang out with people and talk shop, and then all the more techie, crunchy, boring type of content that I have to create, like all the diagrams and stuff. I'm trying to save that for being offline as much as possible so that we can focus our time and attention on stuff that's a little more visually friendly for folks. So, and it requires less text and description stuff and blah, 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 blah. All the things. So let's take this to the window and not brush this, but brush it. How you doing, Karen? You have a good weekend? Shape dynamic. Oh, that's right. Because of the I have a holiday schedule because of Thanksgiving in America is a thing. I will be participating as well. And hold on, let's edge that out there. Really? No? Nice timer. Let's grab some coffee. I'll talk about my schedule, and then we'll just keep picking at terrain. Man, having some Kahlua brand mudslide coffee this morning. Pretty tasty. So Thursday, Thanksgiving schedule. No anything. I'll be off on Thursday. Period. I'll be back on Friday. I actually have only a partial day of my day job that I need to tend to some clients. But once that's clear, I'll be open to fuck around online pretty much all day. So I'm gonna have on Friday morning we'll do a Spelljammer stream like this, like usual. I'll check out for a couple hours for me to take care of business in the real world, and then I can come back for lunch to do some martial powers, and then I can spend the rest of the day on creature tokens for the Eberron adventure that we're writing. Since I won't be here Thursday night for Eberron, I'll be back Friday afternoon to do it instead. So today, like usual, martial powers at lunchtime today, Eberron token art tonight, Tuesday tomorrow, wake up artwork like this. And then let's see, I've got D&D at lunch, so I won't be on to do anything at lunchtime this week. But my Wednesday is clear, so then I'll come back Wednesday morning and continue working on this, whatever piece it is that we're on, and tapping stuff in. And then Wednesday lunch, I'll be back. Probably do some more martial powers at lunchtime. And then I'll be out on Thursday. Then I'll be back Friday morning to do more of whatever artwork we're working on here. Martial powers at lunch. And then the rest of the afternoon, I will work on Eberron stuff. And then on Saturday, we'll be back to continue working on the book cover commission that we are attempting to finish by the end of the month. So, got a lot of stuff on our plate. We're gonna keep punching forward with everything. We keep taking steps, we keep making progress, and we keep reaching completion. So once we actually get there, we can move on to the next project. What's up? Not really. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm all mucked up right now too. You can see here we're just dotting in some terrain that's matching the angle of the ground that we are depicting, and then we're erasing at the bottom and on the far edges to make sure we get that, we minimize that curve. That. Dot. I'm going to drop the opacity of the eraser a little bit, just like down to a 20 to carve out just to start blending in. I like the color where it's at. I just want to get the texture blended in so it doesn't stand out so much as brush strokes, as just ground texture. Like that. I'm gonna poke at this little this little ridge here for a few moments. Not sure what we're talking about today. Just getting into gear for from the weekend back into the saddle. We were able to consolidate 2 of the here, I'll show you. But last night I was able to actually, instead of this, I'll show you the system generator document that we've been creating. Very much a work in progress. But here's our random system generator table. We have our icon here that you click into that leads you up to the corner here. So we have system radius, number of planets, a central star, planet diameter, orbiting moons. Just a quick little table on how to whip up some quick system stuff. Like the general layout of the system. Like how big is it? Where's your central star? How big is the central star? How many concentric rings do we need to go around the star? And that's the number of planets that you have. And then when you zoom into each planet, what's the size of each planet, and orbiting moons. Like, for example, here we have planet diameter. Roll on the following table to determine the diameter of each planet in the system. Roll 1d4. I actually modified this to a d8, so it'd be 1, and then 2 to 4, and then 5 to 7, and then 8. But the diameter stayed the same as a d10 times 100 miles in diameter. So anywhere from... actually, I dropped this down to d10 times... Actually, I should have probably showed you this one. Hold on, let's get it down. But the layouts are the same. It's just while I was doing the layouts, I'm like, you know what? I think I can do better representation here. So as you can see here, zooming in, we have a D8 table here. So diameter is 1D8, 1D10, because you have to be at least 10 miles to have a spherical gravity, right? We discussed that in a previous session. So this will be anywhere from, on a roll of 1 to 8, which is unlikely, it'll be a planet anywhere from 1 to 100 miles in size. 8, equally unlikely, will be a planet anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 miles in size, which is massive. Tauril and Earth are both about 8,000 miles in diameter. So they actually sit in here in that 4 to 7 range, which is most typical. But planets, smaller planets like super inner world, like Anadia or like Mercury, for example, could fit in the 2 to 3 range of 1d10 times 100 miles, so it could be up to 1,000 miles in size. So there are a lot of smaller planets, like Pluto, for instance, is like 200 miles across, I think. So that would fit down here as well. So rolling a d8 that results in a 5 indicates a planet 1d10 times 1,000 miles in diameter. Rolling a subsequent d10 that results in an 8 indicates a world 8,000 miles in diameter. And once you have the planet results down here of 2 to 3 that we have over here, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2. Planet results here is 1 to 3. So a planet that is only 100 miles in size, you can see here, is absent from the planet results. So you're not going to have a moon if you're only 30 or 40 miles in size, because the moon is going to be at least 10 miles in size itself. Otherwise, it's just an asteroid field. So that's how you sequence through these things. The result of the planet diameter above determines the number of moons, the diameter of each moon, and the distance each moon's orbit, the distance of each moon orbit, and the distance each... Oh, I see how that goes. And the distance of each moon in orbit, no. And the distance each moon orbits the planet as listed on the table. Yeah, that's proper English. On the table below. Cool. Thanks, Adam. 2, 3, 4, 5. So if it's 2, if you roll a 2, it's going to be D10 times 100 miles. You're going to have D4 minus 2. So chances are you aren't going to have a lot of moons. The moon diameter is going to be D4 times 100 miles. And the distance between moon and orbit is 2d8 times 10,000 miles. So there you go. You just randomly random up, and then you put them in your concentric circles. There you go. And then we have other pages here. I'll flip through the other pages since we're looking at it, and then we'll get back to work. So here we're looking at world compositions of air, earth, fire, or unusual compositions. And here we have example. I plucked this from another book that we had done. So we have fire, earth, water, and air worlds, and then Toril, of course, being your standard earth world. Unusual worlds like a para-elemental world, a cloud cluster where there's D10. Roll D10 once on both the air quality, visibility, and world temperature tables below for the entire cloud cluster. Instead of one world, it's an air world with the moons clustered within the same planetary air atmosphere. So when you know what kind of a world you have, when you know what your planet size is and how many moons they have, then you can go into the planet itself to look at its composition. And in this, like we're looking at in this instance, the moons aren't circling around the Earth, the planet. Then the planet is a gas, and the cluster of moons is inside of it, where you determine the air quality, visibility, the world of the cloud in general. And then you got a ring of moons. Instead of one world, it's D4 plus 1. Earthly moons are positioned equidistant from each other in a shared orbit around the central star. There you go. It's like the world got broke up and caught in a ring, but there's a number of moons that form out of it. Roll 1d4 times 100 miles once for the diameter of all moons in the ring. Roll 1d10 for each moon on the air quality and visibility tables below, etc., etc. So you got asteroid sizes. If there's going to be asteroids, D10 times 5 feet. And it goes up to 10 miles, because anything larger than 10 miles is going to have spherical gravity. Up to 10 miles, it can be planar. Paralemental composition: magma, ooze, ice, smoke from the paralementals. So that's the table there. So we're going to be drawing out elemental planets here, and here we're going to be doing basically the cloud world the cloud cluster is what we're looking at here, with asteroids floating around it. And then we got temperature, world temperature, air quality, visibility, like is it poisonous, is it fresh, is it poisoned, is it deadly, visibility, is the atmosphere so thick that it limits your vision, or is it so thin that it allows you to see further than usual. And then we'll just have a landscape that we drop in here, and then we have a case study here. We have inhabitants, the type of creatures that can inhabit on it. So 1 to 4, the world has no native creatures, but there is a small population of non-native creatures. Roll 1d8 plus 10 on this map. So if I roll 1d8 plus 10, it's going to be a range of 9 to 18. So 9 will put me with beast creatures only, and it could range up into humanoids, monstrosities, aberrations, and you can see there's a double mark. Double mark means this result indicates plant food doesn't naturally grow in this world, but may have scarce amounts present. So there are no native populations to the world. The number that you roll here, they don't have their own sustainable food source. So that's something to take into consideration. But let's see, when you're rolling a dot here, we scroll down, it says this result indicates plant creatures specifically. A result of 13 or less includes plant food suitable for grazing and cultivation by native creatures unless noted otherwise. So we have a stacking cascade here of ascending forms of life. Plants, beasts, humanoids. That's stuff, well, the plant creatures is a little unnatural, but beasts and humanoids, that's common stock for like Earth Prime. And then you have monstrosities and then aberrations. You can see it's deviating further away from reality, except for the plant creatures. It's deviating further away from reality into aberrations, elementals, fae, undead. So that's your stack. So like if you rolled an 18, if you rolled an 8 and then add 18, the small population of non-native creatures in that instance would be undead. So your narrative there is these guys landed, something made them all undead, and they're stuck down there. There you go. If you rolled a 19, roll 1d8 plus 10 on this table, ignoring results below 11. So on this 19, there is a chance that you would have something that would be... this is ignoring results below 11. So on this, a d8 plus 10. Right, because normally you would feed in all of the things. Let's see, it says beep. This result indicates plant. What does it say up here? It says, to determine the inhabitants of the world, roll on the table below and include all results equal to or less than the number rolled. But then down here when we're looking at it, it says D8 plus 10, ignoring results below 11. So it'd be monstrosities, aberrations, elementals, fade, undead only. Though it already indicates that there's some sort of cultivatable life, base sort of cultivatable or harvestable food material that these things could live off of. So if you're in a world that's only elementals, and say you're on a rock world, then that would imply like it's a world populated by like rock elementals, Zorns, stuff like that. And so there'd be like a heavy, like it'd be like a jewel and mineral rich world that these Zorns could live off of, right? And then on D6 plus 12 on this table, ignoring results below 13. So that'll take us from a 13 to 18. So monstrosities, aberrations, elementals, fae, and then resulting results below monstrosities. So this world would only have aberrations, elementals, fae, and undead, which probably means like it could be like a world absent of an atmosphere. So examples, and then we're looking at so once this composition, temperature, and inhabitants of the world are determined, the DM can choose what environments exist on the world for the inhabitants to survive. For example, in realm space, the closest planet to the sun is Anadia, an earth world with an unnaturally hot temperature inhabited by plants, beasts, halflings, and umber hulks. The planet is dominated by a deadly desert and lava fields due to its proximity to the sun, but it has habitable zones at the north and south pole equators where lakes, rivers, forests, and plains provide sustenance for the inhabitants that thrive there. That's Anadia is the actual planet that's closest to the sun in realm space. It is populated by halflings and umber hulks, and it's the primary place that Yogi can go in to grab more umber hulks as slaves for their ships. So when we finish this illustration, we'll put a Yogi slaver ship here in orbit around this Anadia. So, but that's the random system generator, a quick example of a planet that can utilize these systems that you could easily random your way into an Anadia type world, or just a normal prime world where your characters would normally inhabit. But there's only 4 pages, so there's no illustrations on that page, so it's already done, hence the lock. We've got a good idea of what kind of illustrations we got up there. We can just do a cloud moon type picture down here, which might be like a couple hours. This might be like a couple hours, and then this world, and then the sketch like maybe 5 or 6 hours, and we'll be done with it. So we don't have a lot to do, and it's all basically environmental type world illustration stuff that we've done multiple times here on stream already. It's pretty easy for us to process that stuff. So I'm gonna hit save here. But that's what's coming down the pipe. So right now, once we get this picture done, we'll move into the exploration chapter. And again, off screen, off channel, while I'm working on stuff, I'm working on all the ship, fleet, mechanic, movement, diagram stuff in the combat chapter. There's 4 illustrations left for us to do in the combat chapter as well, which we'll get into once we get to it. But I anticipate us working on this and the system generator between now and the end of December. With God's grace, we'll be done with both this and the system generator in November, and then once we get into December, we'll have a full month plus some vacation time during the holidays to finish the remaining 5 combat illustrations that we have, finish up the diagrams, and then we'll be working on resolving the diagrams and maps for Light of Zaraxis. And so we're starting to look at having a early/mid-month release for this on the DMs Guild in January. It's looking very reasonable for us to get to that point. We're almost done with this 100 and some odd page dot. We actually were able to consolidate, so we're down to 106 pages now from 107 by just compressing those tables a little bit on the first page from 2 half pages with 2 half pages of art to a single page not needing any art. So sometimes the best art direction you can do is skip the picture. Here, there we go. All right, cool. So I'm feeling okay about that. I think what I want to do now, actually, is build in I want to build out these trees. So let's build some trees. Let's go grab. Let's go. Let's grab some scruffage here. That's a good green. Let's find. That's a pretty dark green. I think we can do better. Let's just grab this. That's purpley. Probably a good choice. We go here and let's grab our foliage brush because it's basic. Let's scroll back up to find the one that we're looking for. We'll just crack out some majestic trees. There, that's the one. And then brush settings, shape dynamic, brush property, projector. Now we can spin our brush. Bop, 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 bop. I'm going to take this down low and we're going to reduce the curve of it so it's more straight as such. Tap. I'm going to take a sip of coffee and some water. Actually, water first. No, chase it with some coffee. Hey. Brawr. Hair's been driving me crazy. I think I need to cut my dead ends. The little frays are starting to really bother my face when they traipse across it. Good indication I need to get my ends cut. Let's see. How are we doing here? What are we looking at? Perfect. Foreground. Trees. Just gonna fuzz my way down this trunk. 100% erase to trim it up. I'm gonna do a little bit of fray up here at the top. See, it's got this mild curve to it, so I can do something like this and this. Make little top floofs. Erase that a bit. Hey, what's up? Are you going to have, I'm losing text, some moss-covered trees with no branches? I wasn't thinking about that. I was just going to, I literally don't think about it. I'm just going to make some, I was just going to make some evergreen trees. There might be some without any, that are dead. So we're just tapping, and then we're just kind of zigzagging our way down. For those that are familiar with Bob Ross, this will look very similar to the work that he does. And you can see here that I can curve this branch around. I'm actually thinking about the extra dimensional space, the third plane, where this tree is actually sitting inside of. So I can just curve this stuff around here like that, and it kind of fleshes out spherically around the tree. It's got tilt going. And that creates a decent foundation for us to have a nice little fluffy tree. So I can then come back in here and I can hit it with the eraser along the edges here to make sure that I'm liking the shape that it's sculpting itself into. That's a
I don't want to sculpt too much because then it starts to have a manufactured feel to it. These little gaps are important for when we actually start layering in the highlight color. Pick away at this a little bit, get it a little bit more conical. There, not bad. I'm gonna trim this up a little bit so it feels balanced here at the bottom, and then drop in some more rogue branches like that. It should fit pretty nicely. Fair enough. I think this close to a structure though, I think it'd be something like that would have already been harvested. So it makes sense that this close to an active building would probably be a healthy tree. Otherwise, it would have trimmed it out already or harvested it for wood. But when we start building ground scrub and stuff, that's something to keep in mind for sure. Let's trim this in a bit here. There. Now we can go grab a highlight. It's a very sharp green. What kind of stuff we got going on down in here? This is dangerous territory to be in because of that water, so let's get away from that. Yeah, we're getting a consistent green going on here. Let's go with that. So we have our base here, and then we're going to work our highlight here. So let's zoom in here. I'm going to go with a smaller size brush. Just going to dot around the edges, trying to stay away from the camera focusing center for this color. I think I can switch to a reddishness for the more forward facing. But I want this color, this lighter color. It's a natural bend towards. It's green, so I mean, it has that space between red and blue. And since the planet's blue, I wanted to flavor in some green like that. There, and now I can do another layer. Oh shit, I just locked up. Alright. Hit save. When it finishes saving, we can close it and then reopen it. Very good, very good, very good. Very, 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 very good. All right, so let's do a highlight color here. Let's just block that in. I'm grabbing the color references we had just used to make sure that I'm going to be consistent with my color palette when I jump at, because I'm going to have a third color here, a reddishness. Pretty sure I found a redliness. That is, it's probably decent. Let's see. erase it a little bit to simulate the tapping. There you go. There's a decent little tree. I fucking love trees. I should probably... Hold on real quick. Let me jump in here and grab this guy and peel him away. No, that being on bottom, that's fine. What I do want to do, real quick, just for... God damn it, it locked up again. Waiting for it to save and finish. Apparently, I'm supposed to be drinking a lot more coffee than I am right now. Let's try that again. That chocolatiness is really starting to come out in the coffee. When it cools down, I gotta tell you, coffee has basically two flavors, hot and not, and then whatever actual flavor it is, you don't get until it's not hot. Let's zoom in here and grab. Nice. Let's grab that. Here's our base. So over the base, underneath the highlights, we're going to grab, here's our tree line. Nope, that's not what we want. We want our chisel. Where did our chisel go? Okay, I've got a throat thing going on today. Come on, Turkey. Where you at? Oh, I got way too many brushes here. I need to get rid of like 90% of these. Most of them are worthless. There we go. Mountain chalk. And then we slim it down like we had shown before. I'm gonna go down the tree trunk like this. There, you can see that we're sitting on it there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to grab this brush. I gotta get our spin on. We're going to use this as an eraser. Break up that highlighting. Here we go. Take all that clump there.
There. I have that organized into a tree. I can do the next one. And then we just go down the line. There. Use that as our base. I'll actually drop the light on that a little bit. Shift it over, that feels right. Okay, cool. Haganagas are real today, dudes. Let's grab that. Pull that over a bit away from here. That feels pretty good like that. So cool. Now we'll just go through and we'll do them all again. Bump, bump. Moss it down. Try to stay on point this time, Kearney. Yeah, a cup of hot chocolate does sound really good. I don't break my fast until 9 or 10 o'clock typically, and then I'll have my one meal a day. So I'll basically resolve food by noon for the day, and then I'll go without for the rest. So I've got basically, it takes about 2 hours for the insulin to drop out of the system that's processing the sugar. And once the insulin is done, that's when the ghrelin chemical starts to kick up in your tummy. And ghrelin is the thing that makes your stomach growl and gives you that sense of hunger. If you don't have a lot of ghrelin, you don't get hungry a lot. Little kids don't have a lot of ghrelin that they generate. That's why they're never fucking hungry. But as we age, we get more. We need more energy to keep us going. So our ghrelin is kind of an adaptive development as we age. Didn't realize I was painting directly on the trunk, but I'm going to be okay with that. Once the insulin turns off, that's when your body starts shifting gears from the instant energy that we get from the glucose that's being injected in through the food that we have, and it has to start switching gears. So ghrelin not only is telling you that you're hungry, but it's also an indication that your body is shifting gears from consuming and powering itself off of glucose sugar energy, and is now going into fat store. And so once that insulin is out of the system, so you have like a 2-hour window to eat, and then you have a 2-hour window for the insulin to drain out of your body. And if you stay inside that 2-hour, 1-day window, once that insulin drains off, you basically have 20 hours where your body is going to then take whatever remaining caloric requirements that it has. It will then extract it hungrily from your fat cells. That's what your liver will start doing. It'll shift into extracting energy from the fat store. So, and again, that takes a couple hours for your body to slow down its chemical processes to get back into that mode. But it takes a few hours. You need like basically 10. You basically need 10 calories per pound to sustain your weight. So, like I'm currently 220 pounds after the weekend. So a 2,200 calorie day will basically keep me at 220 pounds. If I can drop myself down, if I only take 400 calories of food today, I'll probably end up having like around 800 calories worth of food stuff by the end of it. So that's a deficit of 1,400 calories, and there's only each pound of fat on your body contains 3,000 calories of energy. So that basically translates into however quickly you can have a deficit divided by 3,000 is the number of days it takes for you to lose a pound. And so I'm losing about 8 pounds a month right now, which is only a quarter pound a day. But if I'm having only, like, say, so if I have if I'm taking 800 calories in and I need 2,200, that leaves 1,400. 1,400 times 2 is 2,800 plus some spare, and then I'll have a bullshit weekend, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I don't care about how much I eat. I'm just hanging out with friends and family, just enjoying the day, not being a dick about it. So then I'll stack on a couple 1,000 calories more than I need, so I'll gain a pound or two. Like, I was 219 before the weekend, and then I was 221 point something on yesterday, and then I started I cut off food at 4 o'clock, and so I've been on fasting since 4 o'clock yesterday, so I was only 220.8 today. So I'm anticipating having a pseudo loose day today. So I may drop down to like 220.4 today. But I should easily be back down to like the 219, maybe 218 by Thursday. And then I'll have, Thursday will be a feasting day because of Thanksgiving. And then I'll have Friday, apparently I have Friday off to myself. So I shan't have any food on Friday. That'll drop me back down, and then Saturday we'll be back into a normal weekend. So by the end of the month, I'll probably be I reckon I'll probably be like 216 by November 30th. It's because I'll lose weight during the week and then gain some back during the weekend, and then lose weight again and then gain some back. So I've got like this heartbeat of a food count, but it's slowly driving down 8 pounds per month. And so I'm basically 220 right now. I want to get down without any food in my body, 185, so that when I do put food and keep food in my body, I'll be able to float somewhere between 190 and 195 with a full belly at all times, which will allow me to drop down to a size 38, which is about where I was in college. So I'm pretty happy with that idea. So now we have all our branches. We're going to take a thin branch here and build some fluff here at the top. But yeah, by having a casual relationship during the week, like for instance, I'll have hot cocoa and flavored coffee as my dessert today. After I eat my meal, I'll have some coffee left over. I want to cap that off before noon so that I can sleep like usual. But I can put, syrups and sweeteners and stuff like that in there, and that'll probably be like maybe around 200 to 300 calories worth of sugary type stuff that I put in. So if I only have like for example, I can have a stir fry of veggies with like cauliflower rice, and that'll be because of the amount of mass that veggies and lettuce and fruit has inside of your body. I can easily eat 500 or 600 calories worth of green roughage with some protein like chicken or some steak on top of it, and end up having like maybe a 600 calorie meal because of the volume of those sorts of foods that'll fill me. And then I can afford to have a sweet delicacy on top of it and still be below 1,000 calories for the day. So that's still going to allow me to drop every 2 or 3 days a pound and be sensible. And then when the weekend arrives, I don't have to go, starvation crazy because I've been torturing myself all week. It's really casual. It's much more casual than the first time. When the first time I lost, when I went from 311 down to 195, I was really harsh and aggressive and strict, and it would cause me to have candy binges, and because I was denying myself any kind of sweets and tastiness. Now, but I was also I'd have like a lot of carbs like rice and pasta and stuff like that. So with the way that I'm approaching it now, having a really, really high veggie content, it's allowing me to be a lot more casual about, a lot less strict, more casual, certainly more crowd and neighbor friendly as far as like when do I eat, what do I eat, and I'm still losing weight like crazy. So it's a much healthier approach that I'll be able to sustain basically perpetually. Like once I get down to 185, I only need basically 1,600 some odd calories to sustain myself a day. So during the week, I still don't have like on Mondays and Thursdays, Saturdays, I still don't have a lot of reason to eat a lot of food. Normally because I spend most of my time alone in production, so I don't have to worry about socializing so much. So I can still keep the same. And then during the day, I work from home, so I spend most of my time alone there again. So that allows me to maintain the current schedule that I have. But once I get down to 185, I can like go to bars or have dinner and stuff on like say a Tuesday and Thursday and Sunday night, as opposed to what I do currently. So I'll be able to naturally curve back into having normal food social interaction with people. Probably by February. 8 pounds a month. I want to lose 220 right now. I want to get down to 185. So that's 35 pounds. If I'm going to lose 8 a month, that's January, February, March, December, January, February, probably by March. That's a real delicate descent. But it'll get harder as I go because I'll have less margins I can fuck around with. Like I'll need to be a little bit more conservative on my weekends because I'll just not eating will have less of an impact on my bottom line as I get further down in that weight. Like the system will require less nutrition overall to sustain itself, so I have to discipline myself into like maybe I'll lay off my daily latte once I get down to 185. Maybe I'll just have that like every other day or something like that. We'll see what my body needs to do to stay where it's at. Like anyone cares. Let's add another layer here just to make sure that I'm not making any mistakes that I regret. Now we can just fill in this happy tree. It's the hunger that kills most people's efforts. You gotta be ready for your tummy to grumble for a while. It'll go away. The ghrelin burns out its own chemical process as well. It's just that it can last days. So yeah, it'll come and go in waves. Basically every 2 hours, it'll remind you it's been 2 hours. You haven't eaten anything. So as long as you can get in or whatever tempo it is that your body is trained to distribute ghrelin. Once you recognize your patterns, though, you can anticipate it's like I'm going to get hungry here in probably about 15 minutes. And then you can like just have like Earl Grey tea or something neutral like that doesn't actually have any calories, but fills your stomach with warmth. That is generally sufficient to help tide it, I find, to tide over until the ghrelin passes, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. And of course, staying focused and on a task. So it's real easy for me to be able to forget about food all day while I'm painting. So naturally, I paint a lot. Or rather, I paint a lot, so naturally it's easy for me to keep the weight off. Because I'm not paying attention to myself as I fall into the workflow. There we go. Another decent tree. merge that down. Like that. I can trim off some of those little bits. Yeah, that's a fine tree. Let's let that guy just sit and be himself. Let's give him he already has a friend, so let's keep his friend warm. It's own little tufts. It's this curve. It's that curve that we have in there that's really important. And as we show here, it's like a 30-degree arc that we can thin down to nothing, just be basically a straight line. Well, it's not perfectly straight. It's got a little bit of lumps at the end. But this angle here, the width of this circle can control the angle of the brush, which helps we can change the characteristics of the tree with different angles of branches as we go through this process. That also helps keep variety and different personalities in your trees by the size of the brush and the curve of the angle that we use by squinching. Calling this curve process, if we call that squinching, this is squanched. Squinch to squanch. Is that how that works? That reminds me, there's an episode of Rick and Morty I haven't seen. I think there was an episode of Rick. Was there an episode yesterday? There might have been. I'll check to see. I suspect that we're at the mid-season break. So I don't think there is another episode of Rick and Morty for me, but we'll see. If there is, I'll watch it. Catch it tonight after work before I'm on stream with Eberron. Big Rick and Morty fan here. Love that dimensional, jumpy, timey-wimey, sci-fi tropey type of stuff. Let's get rid of that one so we can see what our branch is actually doing here. Fill this in. It's feeling a little bloated, so let's thin out the environment around it just so we can get a good eye on where it's at. There we go. That's feeling pretty good. I'm liking that. So busy working on map assets that I completely forgot about last night. Normally I'll take a break. I'll take a production break like at 10 o'clock and catch an episode on Sunday night. But I got so wound up that I completely forgot the show was even on. I don't watch a lot of shows, but Harley Quinn, British Bakers, Rick and Morty, Invincible. I think that's all I'm really watching right now. Not a lot. There we go. Just like that. We got that guy there.
let's put another tree in. So just doing a conveyor belt right now. Just dropping in tree by tree. As well as chore by chore. The stream of people get wider, then it becomes a river. River becomes an ocean. Carrying ships that bear women and men. I was listening to They Might Be Giants last night. Anyone that's familiar with They Might Be Giants, the only album by They Might Be Giants I actually like is Flood, which is the only album anyone knows by They Might Be Giants because it was basically a smash hit record of like 7 or 8 freaking #1 quality songs, and then the rest of all of their albums are basically garbage. Like one hit wonders, like they sold their soul for one album. This stuff is going to all stack up on itself with the clump of how close these trees are together. Yeah, it's pretty close and intense. That's okay though. You can have them clumped up like that. They get close and cozy. Trees do that. Just fill it out a little bit. We can get down here into the intensity of all this muck about. Last tree. Again, when I get to 500 subscribers, I'll put all these brushes on my Patreon at no cost for people to pick up. Like, as I think they're ASB files. I'll clean up all the brushes that I sift through. By the time I get to 500 subscribers, it's going to be time for me to clean up my brush file anyway. So it's actually really timely for me to do so. But yeah, I'll make all these brushes available so it's easy for anybody that's. I think ASB files work in GIMP, Photoshop, as well as Krita, maybe Clipart Studio. I'm not 100%. I'm a Photoshop guy myself. I love Photoshop. I don't know why people hate on it. I mean, I respect that it's a cost per month subscription as opposed to like free like GIMP or one and done like Krita or Clip Studio. But I've talked about this before. Photoshop has consistently come through for me on the color tools that I need as a colorblind artist to be able to produce stuff. Hey, I released a video over the weekend about the colorblind process that we had talked about here on stream last week. So anyone that's new to the channel that's interested about how do I pick my colors and how do I go about building things in color even though I don't see it myself, I got a quick little it's like a 5-minute little blurb that I extracted from one of our previous sessions here. So I'm getting better about finding and extracting those things. Still got a long way to go, but I think it's just a matter of frequency. Obviously, I'll get good at it over time because that's how everything works. Just get better at it. But actively attempting to extract conversation pieces and conversations from the streams that we have into standalone content that doesn't require people to sift through a bunch of live stream stuff to get to the point of whatever the conversation is that we're having, whether it's about like experience points accumulation or like planning campaigns at different tiers of play, tier levels, that sort of stuff. The stuff that we talk about here. The only thing I need to do is get better about having those conversations here in the mornings while I'm still waking up, as opposed to in the evenings when I'm all jazzed about being alive and excited about working on stuff. That tends to be when I have the most creative conversations. So my current request into the Muse is to allow me to have more creative conversations in the morning, like we did on Friday last week. Or was it Thursday? Maybe it was both. Anyway, here's that, and that, and that. It's a fun little copse of trees.
Maybe a little crowded, but I'm okay with it. Let's see. Yeah, we extracted that. That's missing currently, so let's drop that down to here. We'll reset that. I'm gonna break apart these each of these trunks into individual files or layers. I feel like I want to move them around a little bit. There we go. I'll grab this and we'll thread through there. There, we'll thread through here. There. One tree. Here's our. Drop these down in the proper order. Now I can space them out a little bit better. I only got a whole nother copse over here. I think I'm gonna push these over here like that. Yeah, if I put some trees here, I can create some blur between this edge here, so I don't have to worry so much about where this ring is going with the planet. That makes sense. Let's do that. We can pull this one over. There, we can do that, and let's make sure we're prioritizing properly because we have this bundle here that goes on this copse here. So let's open this up. Burp. Open this one up. Grab that and drop it down into here. Conceal that. Open this one up. Overconfident. That's where that one is. That's, there we go. There we go. And here. Drop that open, drop that down in there. There we go. Bring that to there, and we can take this one here and open up a little bit of. I like that lean. I think that looks good. And then of course I've got a counter lean. That's a good little pile that we can start with. So I'm going to stay focused on the task at hand, and let's grab our highlights over here. Drop those in across like that. Then lean my
mindful of where the highlights are actually coming from, the planet behind it. So we're limiting these highlights to where the moon would actually hit the surfaces like that. I'm going to close this up and we'll open this one. We'll add another layer here and then we'll dot this one too. Probably should have erased. Let's go back into here and here and here. Let's erase along this middle here. Make sure we're keeping our core clean. Thank you. We're using the same type of brush as we used to paint the background so that we can have correlating language so that your eye automatically associates the shapes that we're building with the object that it's resting on. So we have that self-referencing the shapes. Once we get down to this area here, it starts to become a little hazy about where that plant's going to be able to poke its light through. So we stop around here where the trees start to converge together. And there's more gap here, so we can have the light traipse down a little bit more here to break through the branches. Erase and make sure I keep that clean. And then once you get down in here, the foliage starts to break up. This guy's standing out on the edge, so he's going to have a lot of highlights along this edges on here. There you go. Tap away at it a little bit. And we can come back in with our reddishness. We can dot that through here to help create that depth. And we can be fearless about diving down into here and covering things up and like that. Let's flesh this out here. Increase the size of our brush to fill that in a little bit more, and then we'll come back through and we're keeping this curve down like this because we have that curve down, that bowing like that, which you'd have facing towards you more than anywhere else. And then down here in the scruff, we can turn the brush over and have it face upward to start creating little ground tufts. And we go back up here and erase throughout the piece of it. Let's see where our holes are popping up. There we go. There. Not bad. Not bad. Super easy little brush effects that allows the eye will do a lot of the work for you as it tries to imagine what these paint splotches are trying to express. And since you're getting that general tree shape going on here, the eye is naturally going to start filling in this shape with the idea of branches and leaves without me having to do much more than just dot in these pixels like that. I feel like this tree should be further back. Like that. Behind this tree. There we go. I can be really generous with where I clump this stuff around here in the foreground, just to tap, tap, tap it in. And then you erase to get rid of some of this stuff, and it just naturally starts building up its own little story about the things that live around inside of here. Highlights, and then let's put our shadow branches here. Small. Overwhelm the piece, and I can make the branch bigger as I start moving my way down, and at some point I flip it over. Like that. Let's push this thing down here. It shouldn't cause much ruckus here in the depths. Like that. Erase out a little bit and have it do some overlapping. Right in behind that other tree here. Like this far down there really shouldn't be any planet light poking through, so I'm just kind of traipsing around in the background here, filling in the low end gaps where I don't think it's reasonable for us to see this stuff manifesting, so I'm just using the same background colors to help fill in those little points of light, but I don't want to kill all of them. I want some of them to remain, just most of them obscured, because that's how plants work. Just like that. There we go. Brush small because the tree is small. Tap, tap, tap. Like I said before, Bob's method is a lot more efficient because his machinery is infinitely more complex. His ability to intuitively and through tactile sensation be able to control how the brush is stamping onto the page to create different patterns is way easier than using these simulated tools to duplicate the effect. But point being that we can duplicate the effect. I feel like there's a little bit too much clumpage going on in here. I wanted to thin that down a little bit. Thin that down a little. Yeah, we're running out of time, but that's okay. This is looking pretty good. I'm happy with it. There's that, and now let's get that trunk color going here. Go pick up our chisel again. Where are you? There, I saw you. There you go, mountain chisel. Straight edge it, drop down the opacity. And since this is the direction that the plant is facing, this is the direction that we're going to add our trunk. There, easy peasy. up the line. I want to thin this out because that color's a little too dense. There we go. Drop it in here. I don't feel like he should be in the foreground. I feel like, woof. There's that. There's that. There's that. There's that. This is in front of that. That's appropriate. Okay, cool. Highlights, there you go. And then trunk. There, easy peasy. Peel that out. Here, we can take that up to our references. Ref, blurp, blob. Here. Now we have this in our reference layer, so we can just make it go away when we need to. Perfect. Trees, looking pretty good here in our foreground foliage. Now let's spend a few minutes doing some ground scrub. Let's go back to our color references here, and let's grab something like that, and then something like this. Neat. That should work pretty well. Drop back down into here, and let's I don't know. Let's just grab another. Let's grab our conifer here. Use that as our base for the fun of it. 100% good. So we're just gonna dump some color down here. Just kind of a base, you know? These trees to be sitting around inside of. Trees create communities around them. Smaller, low-hanging vegetation that values the water dripping off of them, or the way that they control the flow of water into puddles around their bases. Encourages growth of life around them. Trees are great community leaders. Tapping stuff into place there. I only got a few moments left. Yeah, it's 7:50 something here in Seattle, so I'll be starting my day job here in a few minutes. But I'm going to be back in about what am I going to be here? I'm going to be here till I think a 1:30. I think 1:30. That's going to be. Let's go for 12:30. That'll be 4.5 hours from now. Let's have a pretty productive day until then. We'll reward ourselves with a nice 1.5-hour long lunch to work on some more monk subclasses. We're working on the Way of the Four Elements and I think Kinsei today are the two monk traditions that we're converting with the martial power system that we'll be playtesting probably in February once this book is done. I think that's what we have planned. There's that. That's a good clumping. Now let's take this highlight here. Too sharp. Let's bring it down 20%. Take the 40. Build up this ground moss bit. And I'm going to use the same conifer brush that we have been using here to erase at the top edges of this stuff. See if this turns out nicely. Decent chance that it won't, actually. There's some muddiness that I'm feeling coming off of this particular brush here. I like that. Yeah, I'm not liking that at all. We're just gonna kill that. Pick up a different brush. Let's maybe go with, there's my timer. Let's just take a minute here and finish this one. Let's go with this foliage spin brush. And just up the opacity so that color shines through a little bit better. We'll use this conifer brush still. Let's say drop that down to 20%. The biggest problem you can have with brush like this is the lack of identity. It can easily just become a big smudge of mush. There's a lack of structure in its shape or its consistent imagery. So that's why I'm using it sparingly here and erasing a lot of it into the scruff overall, because I can use the top line of that to create these interesting little highlight effects. But I don't want that mass sitting inside the bulk of the body of foliage that we have here at the bottom. I'm just trying to use it just to create a little bit of a color line to separate the trees from the shrubbage that's coming in here, like that. There, pick at that a little bit. I'm gonna erase, I'm just gonna keep smudging that down in so it grounds into the piece. Then I'm gonna create a separate layer. Since we only really have that ridge line there, that's creating the separation color. I'm going to drop it down to have a little bit more line of separation here. We're going to grab a different brush before we finish our day. Let's go with our leaf spin. That's a good brush. Do we want to keep? Creating little shapes and forms here by like how we curve this brush around. It creates the space that the bush that we're building here, and then we erase away almost all the bottom bits so we have that upper line curve, right? So we can then build another one underneath it like that to help build this layering, like almost like a conch shell effect that we're creating these little pockets. So we got this line of separation up here, and I'm trying to keep a little bit of a gap in here to respect that space so that they can still feel like separate objects inside of the inside of the overall mass. I think is probably the best way of describing it. I'm going to create a separate layer to keep them separated. Whoa. That down. Just tap erase that just a little bit, just to chunk at the edges a little. There. That is a decent little clump that we've built for ourselves. So when we come back
tomorrow, we're going to fill out, since we have this patterning here, we can just fill out this clump and do the same thing over here. I'm going to go up to our reference document. Make sure we have those shapes color in there. For our bushes. So when we come back, we can drop down another copse here and then fill up this front in here. That should push this down the hill into the background a bit by creating framing around this like that. That'll help push this back into the background a little bit more. That'll make this an interesting foreground piece. Let's conceal that. Yeah, once we finish with this ridgeline here, that'll help break up that planet. That'll actually look really cool. We can have foliage here filling in. That'll make this building easier. We can do the same treatment here as we have on this hill here. And once we finish all the foliage here in this area, we already have forest language going in here, so we can poke at dead trees, like you had mentioned at the beginning of the session, Karen. Those would fit into this forest. And here's some as well. And now that we're getting a color language going on over here, we can match it up with this and fill in this the conformity that we have in the shapes of the trees down here. We can break up by introducing some of this language into it as we recede into the distance, so it'll become less necessary. Like this forest back here doesn't really need a lot of diversity like we have here, but this area here, like this would benefit from having some of that diversification. We have a good base here, but we can then layer in some more grit on top of it by just receding these ideas further and further back into less and less detail. That'll leave us with this building here, and then less and less detail for these buildings here and down here. So once we get the language figured out for this forestry, we'll probably build this out and actually probably finish all the greenery for this ridge along here, and then on Wednesday we'll drop this building into that, nestle it in, and then from there on Friday when we come back, we'll probably be able to finish up all the language for the trees and probably work on the language. We'll have this piece done by Friday. Between Wednesday, this background here, I mean, that's all we really need to do to finish off the ring world, and then some lighting effects for the water, and then we can put in the stars. So I think by Friday this piece is going to be done, and then that means that on Monday next week we'll be able to move into the random system generator section with those different environments that we were looking at. And while we're doing all that in the evenings and in the afternoons, when I'm off camera with you guys, that's when I'm building out the rest of the maps and stuff that I've been building. Like I'll show you something that we finished, and then I got to kick out of here. But let's look at. Let's go back and let's save this, and then let's go fetch real quick. Yeah. It'll fit in. It's just not in the very front ground like that. I think once we get into the larger copes, it'll make more sense. Let's see. Done pages 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Let's look at this. And then we'll be out of here. This is stuff that I built yesterday. These system map, this movement diagrams. Like here for surging. Surging refers to increasing the scale of movement without increasing the scale of the current map. You can move up to 10 squares in a straight line on the current scale of map, as though moving only one square at the next larger scale of magnitude. You can use one square of movement at the 1 mile scale to surge forward up to 10, 50, 500 foot squares. You can use one square of movement at the 500 foot scale to surge forward up to 10 50-foot squares. You can use one square of movement at the 50-foot scale to surge forward up to 10 5-foot squares. This is the same type of movement. I shouldn't have the word of. Same type of movement used while this is the same type of movement used while closing distance as detailed in the shifting scale section above. In the scale section above, it mentions like when you move from the 500 foot to the 50 foot scale by entering the space of another ship, you can decide how far away from that ship you zoom into, up to like say 5 feet away. This is that same surging movement. While you're dropping scale, you can still move up to 10 squares with that 1 square of movement from the 500 foot scale. Like if I'm at the 500 foot scale here and I move into this adjacent square and then I zoom in, I've moved 500 feet into this space. So when I zoom in to the 50 foot scale, I can basically choose how far into that square I'm going to appear, which is effectively surging. So surging here demonstrates, for example, in the illustration below, a craft at the 50 foot scale map can use 1 square of movement to surge forward 6 squares, 300 feet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Use 1 square to surge forward 100 feet, 50, 100. 1 square to surge 200 feet to C, 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1 square to surge 500 feet to D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There you go. So that's the idea about surging. By moving in a straight line, you can move up to 10 squares by only using 1 square of movement at a higher scale. But I have to break the steps up into straight lines. And then over here, we're talking about pacing, which is I can, when a target attempts to move towards or away from a ship in combat, you can use a reaction to stay at the same distance and position relative to the target during its movement. The scale of combat is significantly less than the ship's maximum speed, so pacing a ship can shift scale and move the same amount as the target, regardless of the numbers of squares moved during its turn or yours, at a scale of 500 feet or less. I got an extra dot in there I need to get rid of. Shifting more than 1 magnitude of scale also risks inertia shock, while pacing as detailed inertia shock sidebar above. You can choose to stop pacing a target at any time. For example, in the illustration below, Ship A attempts to pace Ship B while traveling through the depicted asteroid field. Ship A will collide with the asteroid in its path at position C unless it stops pacing before collision. So you can see here B is moving here, and if the ship were to match pace with that, it would ram into C. And then outpacing. Major helms have a maximum speed of 10,000 miles per round, while minor helms have a maximum speed of 100 miles per round. When a ship with a major helm increases speed beyond 100 miles per round, pacing ends for any ships with minor helms because they can't keep up. So those are some of the ideas that we're exploring that we need to put into the page that we create a document for. And then we have on page 17, we're looking at closing this. This is shifting scale. That was page 18. So 17. Here's page 16 where it talks about shifting scale with a stationary object from the 500 foot scale to the 50 foot scale to the 5 foot scale as you close distance with an object, or from the 5 foot scale to the 50 foot scale to the 500 foot scale as you're moving away from that object but still occupying the same square. Here we have shifting scale with moving targets while you're in a pursuit. This is all the same speed, so you can close distance like you're used to, but the ships are still both moving in the same direction. It doesn't matter how much you're moving if there's no other objects relative to you. That way you can have a pursuit in space by 2 ships moving together at the same speed, which is effectively pacing, which is what we talk about on page 18 here. So anyway, these are some of the diagrams that I'm being trite and just kicking through this stuff real quick, but once the thing is published, you can take a look at it, and moving from page to page instead of isolating them makes it a lot easier, I think, to pick up the flow of what we're trying to do. But like here you can see like a stationary object here. As these 2 ships become adjacent to each other at the 500 foot scale, you can see here zooming in. Here's 50 foot squares, and that's a 10 by 10. At the 50 foot scale is a 500 foot square at the larger scale. So this is where A and B are parallel to each other at the 500 foot scale. and at the 50-foot scale. So we're trying to provide a lot of examples to show how ships can synchronize and move with each other at these different scales, since the ships can move 5 feet per round or 1,000 miles per round with the same action economy. We have to be able to provide descriptions of how these things move together at different scales. Which proves to be the most difficult part of the project. So hopefully we're doing a decent job here, and if I need to continue expanding on it, I certainly can. But these are some of the diagrams and stuff that I build off stage, because they're not as exciting to build, and they also require a lot more concentration. I can't just riff through stuff and talk about things as I build them. And then we'll have all these asteroids as little assets that you can drop on your own map as little illustrations. Anyway, that's where we're at right now. That's some of the stuff that we do off screen. No. And this is the stuff that we build on screen. So we'll continue on with this tomorrow morning. I'll be back in about 5 hours. 4.5, yeah, probably about 4.5 hours for me to continue working on the Martial Powers project. So catch up with me then. I'm out of here. Thanks a lot, Karen, for hanging out. Appreciate you. And that's it. Cheers.